Morning, everyone. I'm Mike Stark, AWCI CEO. Great to see you again this morning after this morning's Pinnacle Award breakfast. This executive roundtable focuses on creating and enhancing a safety culture within your company. Recently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that construction fatalities decreased in 2021 by 1.8%. Is that a positive trend? Of course it is. But that was 1,015 individuals who died in construction incidents in 1 year. As we often say, one is too many, and certainly more than 1,000 is way too many as well. So as much as that trend of decreasing is a positive thing, it's obviously not close to being good enough. Deaths by falls and electrocutions in particular did increase during that time. So safety, health and wellness, the number one priority for all of us, all of our companies, all of our employees to make sure that they go home safe every night. We're very fortunate to have a very esteemed panel here of industry leaders to discuss the importance of safety culture, measures their companies take each and every day to, again, make sure their employees go home safely every night. To my immediate right is John Hinson. John is a AWCI past president and also president of branch operations for Merrick in Texas. Next to him is Shawn Burnum, AWCI's immediate past president and vice president of operations for Performance Contracting Group in Lenexa, Kansas. And last we have Travis Winsor, who's AWCI's vice president and CEO of the Raymond Group in Orange, California. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of this critical conversation and sharing your insights on the importance of having a safety culture. Let's get started. John, safety culture has many meanings to different people and companies. Can you define what safety culture means to you and your company, Merrick?
Wow, yeah, that's a good one. Culture, you know, you hope it starts at the top, but incredibly, you've got to make it filter down into the ranks, and that's a challenge. Well, one of the most difficult things to do is to have that individual on a job site thinking about his risk or her risk every time they step up to do a task, and that's behavioral changes is what our goal is to do, is to have that individual thinking about what's in front of him and his task and the risk associated with that. So changing that mindset is what we're trying to do.
Thank you, John. Shawn, at PCI, same question. As far as safety culture, how do you define it, being a professional in the industry, and then how is it part of the culture at PCI?
First of all, hey, PCI and the three of us would all probably echo this. We're still on this journey. We're not up here as authority of experts or anything like that, but we're right along with you all trying to create a safe environment for our folks. And when you talk about safety culture, the word that sticks out to me is culture. How do you change the culture and the behaviors of people that work for you? And that's a hard thing to do, because you're talking about people's worldview and how they relate to folks. And we're as an industry, we're largely employed by folks that like to play hard, work hard, and those types of things. And for me, I have to make it personal. Anybody like to speed when they drive? Am I the only one that speeds when I drive, right? So if you know me, you know I love cars and I'm an aggressive driver. I try to be a good aggressive driver, but my worldview, or the things that I like to do, is live on the edge, a little adrenaline while I drive, and those types of things. So translate that to work, right? So when we have people at work, there's people like me that might take a risk because, hey, I just need to do a little more. I need to be a little more effective. I can beat the guy next to me, or it's just in my nature to be that way, right? And so we're changing behaviors by having a safe culture, and it just takes time. It's a journey. And it's not one size fits all. You have to make the message relatable to each person, to the why they get up and want to be safe that day. I drive fast because I'm an idiot. And then every now and then I'm reminded that's probably not a smart thing to do, right? But We need our guys to be thinking about, I need to work safe today because I have other things in my life that are more important than what I'm doing right now.
Thank you, Shawn. Travis is CEO of the Raymond Group. Safety culture at Raymond Group, is it an evolution, or maybe you could explain a little bit how you define that within your company?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for everyone who's here for AWCI. This is a great opportunity for us to come out here and talk about safety, and I think you really hit on the nail on the head here, talking about culture. Safety is not a practice or some type of new tool or way to do something. It's a culture and a philosophical way to do things. I think we're starting here, having that this is a relatively new committee here to talk about safety, and the fact that I see all these people in the room here is a good start. But we have to do a whole lot more in terms of changing people's behavior. So when I talk about safety, it is a cultural thing. And the way I really look at it in terms of the way that we interact with people, the way we treat people, the way that you encourage them to perform, and to reward them in terms of what they're doing. And so safety to me is really a focus on the people, the employees, their families, and how you treat them, and in making sure that they go home safely each and every day. So I look also at that the performance for individuals. They really they're improved when they're not distracted about their safety, because you want to make sure that they have the right equipment, right tools, and they have good practices that they're engaged in, so they go back to their families day in and day out. And that comes back to a culture in terms of how do you treat people, how do you treat those people within your organization. I always like using visual aids here, and we're talking about culture, and I think we'll be talking a lot about that as we go forward. And one of the things that I've tried to do is message time and time again in terms of what's important to us and how we interact with people, what we do the right things here. And I'm going to, I know I see a bunch of Raymond people over here. I'm going to challenge them right now. And something that I ask that on each one of our job sites, and I carry it with me each and every day to remind me in terms of, it's a branding, it's a challenge coin, and it talks about what safety is all about. And I'm going to look at my guys over here, and gals. Do you have your challenge coins? All right, I got one. Okay, I'll make sure you got that. But we talk about inclusion, respect, diversity, and tolerance. And that gets back to the very basic principles in terms of how we treat each other. And that's what safety is all about. Not only just saying, hey, did you have your hard hat on? Do you have your fall protection in place? But it's how you encourage everybody to work in a good, safe work environment. And so thank you for everybody for being here. And this is a very important topic. And I hope that this continues on time and time again for many more conferences.
Wonderful. Thank you, Travis, and for sharing that challenge coin. That's outstanding. Thank you for that. So, all three of you work for decent-sized companies. So, safety personnel within your company, within your organization. Smaller companies, safety might be part of someone's job. But maybe, John, we'll start with you. You could explain at Merrick where safety personnel sit within the organizational chart within your organization.
That's another good question.
I've got more good questions.
You let them
too.
start.
I mean,
Let the young guys go first. No, let me think for a second. Okay. Starts with me. I'm responsible for safety. That's my job. And that I expect the people that work for me to have that same passion that I have to make sure that the people work for them have the same passion that they have and that I have, and then it cascades down, Steve. I'm serious about that individual going home, and they know it because I attend the job site meetings. We have an executive safety council that meets once a month that our safety director sits on. He gives us advice, we respond, we ask for input, and it all comes up from the ranks of what needs to be done to improve our safety performance. So we have everybody, just like everybody has safety structure and people sit at different levels, but it's my responsibility.
That Executive Safety Council, who's a part of that? You mentioned safety directors invited. Is it the senior leadership of the company or a particular division?
It's the top brass of our company is the executive committee, and then once a month we include our safety director for an additional executive safety meeting. Okay.
That's great. Well, I mean, that's impactful. So, everyone on the team can see how important it is to the executive leadership at the very top.
Yeah, exactly.
That's outstanding. Shawn, within PCI, again, very large company, offices all over the country. Where does safety fit with, I guess, your executive leadership and within the overall structure at PCI?
Sure. And I echo what John said. Hey, safety is a part of all of our jobs. We'll probably talk a little bit maybe about how that interplays with different roles, I'm guessing. But, from an organizational standpoint, we have a corporate safety department that provides services and training and support to each of the branches. And our corporate safety manager answers to the CEO and the COO of our organization. So he's not going through a particular group of folks. He can go right to the top. He has regional folks that are corporate employees that have a region that they focus on and develop and support. They answer to him, who answers to the CEO, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then at the local level, each branch has a variety of different support and safety directors and managers. And they tend to either report to what I would call the operations or construction manager and or the branch manager that's in charge of that branch. So I think to the point that safety answers to the boss, right? And there is a streamline to where there's a good communication line between expectation from the top, as John said, all the way down to how we're delivering that message through the organization.
Excellent, thank you. Travis, so Raymond has several offices. Maybe you could touch upon how the safety structure is within the offices, and then of course how it filters up to the highest levels of the organization with you at the top at headquarters.
So filtering up, I guess, yes, we do have regional safety managers who are responsible for the operations on each one of those projects, so that from a safety standpoint, and then that filters up to the director of safety, and then also directly to myself as the CEO. Now, we do have an organizational structure in place, and from a governance standpoint, we have to do that. But I'm going to come back, and I'll probably mention this several times today, is that it all comes back to the culture and everybody having an alignment in terms of their activities out there. And so when I think about what we do day in and day out, I think that I have a conversation with our director of safety, or if not another regional safety manager, several times a week. But we try to have some cadence out there that on a weekly basis, myself, the COO, and the director of safety, every week we get together and we talk about the pressing issues, what are those issues that we're dealing with now, and how are we going to make it better, and what have we learned from it, because there are so many activities that happen in each one of our organizations that there's always something changing. And we need to have those as lessons that we're learning from each and every day, but not only just are we learning from that, but by the time that it gets to the executive committee up there, the executive group, that we have to make sure that it's communicated down throughout the rank and file, through everybody who's affected on that, because having that lesson that if something has happened, it's not good, it's a wasted lesson if we don't communicate it to everybody who's affected.
Excellent.
Let me just add to that.
Please.
That is probably fundamentally the key to success, is the communication. Mm-hmm. Over communication, extraordinary communication to your teammates. You hit the nail right. That when you said that a while ago, that's exactly right. You got to over communicate to make sure everybody's aware. So anyway, good point.
100%.
Glad you said that.
It's easy for all of us to, we know, been hearing this for 20 years, but that can lead to complacency. So,
right.
Whether people want to hear it or not, it's incumbent upon you all as leaders and your teams to keep drilling it in to folks. Especially over
communicate what you're sharing. I look at Ed and see how successful he's been with communicating. He's a professional communicator, and the way he shares and does it throughout the ranks, and good job.
Excellent. As we look, and we'll stick with you, John, as we look down the road a little bit, say 5 years, the easy answer for any of us would be, where do we see safety as 5 years? It'd be like, hey, everyone goes home safe, 0 fatalities, everyone's healthy. And of course, that's always the goal and will continue to be the goal. But over the next, say, 5 years, do you see safety becoming, a larger issue or maybe a more critical focused issue in our industry? And also, do you see it being harder? As projects get more complex, as the years go by, do you see, keeping everyone safe and healthy becoming a greater challenge moving down the road?
Travis, you're on the roll here. Go. You start first.
Toss it over to me. Okay. we planned out that it was supposed to go 1, 2, 3.
He called an audible. I held it together for 10 minutes.
I like the way this works.
No. So where we're going as with safety, it's an evolving process right now, and quite frankly, I'm disappointed that we did not have a safety committee engaged and in place years ago here in AWCI. The fact that we're just now having these discussions and these type of events and these educational type of events right here, we're behind the ball on that. And we need to change the perspective in terms of are we looking at simply at the newest tool that's out there, but it's more of a philosophy of how we're going forward. And getting back to your question of where are we going to go in the next couple of years here from a safety standpoint, I'm really hopeful that have more engagement and that also that safety becomes more of an industry. We'll take a look in terms of our projects out there. Years back, safety was always at the bottom of the list in terms of, okay, when we're rolling out for a new job, okay, by the way, do we have the superintendent? Do we have all the materials? Do we, what are the change orders that we are considering on this? Oh, by the way, we have to be safe. We need to change that philosophy and make that an industry consideration at the very beginning of every job out there. And taking a look in terms of what the opportunities are, in the next 5 years, I hope that there's more people in this room, and I hope that it is the very first thing that we talk about on every project we go forward, and also the advancements that we have with the tools and equipment out there, that becomes a leading indicator or a leading concern for the industry, a safety industry.
Excellent, thank you. Shawn, same question, where do you see safety coming in the next couple of years?
First of all, I don't think it's going to decline in value or importance. I do think the industry is evolving, and I appreciate AWCI's commitment to onboarding a new safety platform, I'll call it, for lack of better words. I think it's meeting a need of our industry, and I hope that, and I believe it will be the voice of our industry where we can come and have training and education and share best practices in our world and our industry and really move the needle for our organizations collectively. But on top of that, I think that as we go out to these job sites, we can be leaders on job sites. And what I mean by that is you see, and this is to answer your question, how is it evolving? You see a lot of general contractors that are behind as it relates to safety. We have more manpower than they do on the site, but they create the environment our manpower's in. So there's this tug and pull type of situation where we're pushing one direction and they're pulling, and it's just a dynamic that I think people are starting to understand. But I think you're also seeing tradespeople and sub-partners and trade contractors really leading the effort in safety because frankly, we're at higher risk. I mean, the general contractors pass that down to us anyway, right? So the necessity of moving this direction is probably stronger for us, but it doesn't mean it's less important for the general contractors. So this is an opportunity for us to lead out. And I think there's a lot of great contractors that are trade partners that are leading out in this cause. And I do think that it'll evolve and become more of the conversation, hopefully in the next 5 years, to answer your question.
Hey, I know I'm next. That was awesome. And just when you hit, I mean, that was incredible that everybody in this room that's involved on a job site construction understands that the level of safety from one of our clients to the other client varies by a ton.
Right.
The fact that some of the people really don't care about their trade partners, and I don't use the word subcontractor, sorry. But that trade partners that are out there working with us, their safety is even less than the general contractor's requirements. And so our teammates are working side by side some of these other trade partners that don't care about their people, other industries. And here we are trying to support and raise and elevate and raise the bar as an association. Thank you for what you're doing, as Travis said, but I think we in 5 years need to set a bar for those that are members of the AWCI and really set a standard for our people that aren't members to really want to be a member of AWCI, because we're really, I want to say what you just said, which is creating an environment that other people want to take care of their people. So other members and future members want to be a part of. So that's where I see us in 5 years. By the way, I hope y'all do a good job, because I hope to be retired in 5 years.
Thank you, gentlemen.
May I just make a
go ahead,
comment?
Travis.
And Mike, you had some really good comments there as well too. But as I'm thinking about in terms of the safety out there, the people who are in this room here that care about safety, I'm not worried about them. But raising the bar that you're talking about, we need to get a hold of the people who are not in this room, that they aren't even coming to the AWCI, to make sure that their focus are teaching them, educating them, supporting them, that they can be as safe as we are here. Because I'm concerned also about the fact that people who don't engage in good work practices, they are a hazard to other people, or those of us we have all the proper equipment, we have all the proper protocols, we have the proper training. I'm worried about those people who are not in this room, who are not educating themselves, and who are not really caring about what they're doing right now.
100%. Thank you, guys. Next question, and I think this is a challenge for any industry and any topic, right? How do you get buy-in from those employees resistant to establishing a safety culture? I mean, a lot of people, again, human nature, often resistant to change. I'm sure all of you have, the grizzled superintendent who's been with you 35 years who, yeah, I get it. I've been doing this forever. I grew up in the industry. My old man was in the industry. I get it. Whether it's new technology or new processes or new HR policies or a safety culture, with safety and health, you really can't take no for an answer from your team and from your employees. It's too critical. So how do you get buy-in from those who are just resistant to change or resistant to safety culture? And John, we'll stick with you.
Okay, Shawn, you're first.
Okay.
Who's running this show? I don't know.
Oprah's not getting paid over there. Really, it goes back to how I kind of started my conversation, right? How do you get the speeder out of Shawn? How do you get the behaviors to change? And really what we've tried to do is focus on, we have a campaign called The Why. Why do we ask this? And why do you want to come to work and be the best person when you leave and in good shape to get home and do what? Why are you at work? And why do you want to be safe? So we had this campaign, and we really we used some social media and some videos and some outreach, and really from the executive level, really asked people. We went out to job sites. Why do you want to go home? Why is it important to you to be safe today? And really made people kind of make the connection between my behaviors here at work matter when I get home, and I want to be safe for my family, my granddaughter, whatever it is that there's passion. Sometimes it's, hey, I love to play hockey after work, and I can't play hockey if I'm banged up from work. So we had a deal where we had a campaign where we had people send in their pictures of their why, and on their hard hats we had the why, and you could write why you're doing it, my family, my wife, my children, whatever, and really trying to get to the essence of why you want to be safe that day. The other thing that I think we've done is really kind of change our training to not just be centrally focused on be safe at work. It's more about being safe in life. And so we do trainings on, swimming pool accidents and how to keep your children safe and how to, do things at home and how to drive properly and all that, because we want people to change behaviors, not just be safe at work. So that's been a part of that conversation. And we've gotten feedback from some of the folks that work for us that, hey, I got to use my safety at home because, I was doing an electrical project and I thought about how do I do this better, right? And so it's had some fun conversations along the way.
I love the why. I mean, it's trying to make it personal for people. You can give them all the industry data and best practices, but to make it personal, and I'm sure you get people, they put their daughter's name on that or their wife or, whoever it is, and I think that's critical. I'm going to try this again. John Hinson,
Okay.
would you like to address this question?
The question, if I remember correctly, the question is, how do you deal with an individual who resists changing their safety culture?
Resistant to establishing a safety
Yeah,
culture.
you fire them. I mean, if I've got an individual that's resisting the culture, I mean, we have a sweet little conversation because I've given him all the tools, I've given him the training, I've expected him to do what I asked him to do, Steve. And the next step is to say, brother, sister, one more time. If there is one more time, I'll let you have one more time or I'm firing you because we're not going to, you're setting a terrible example for the people that follow you. So that's how you deal with them, people like that. You fire them. Sorry, Travis, I know you have another conversation.
You just dropped the hammer there.
Mr. President over here says, no, you have another conversation with them. I agree with that. You try to convince them that they need to learn and change their behaviors. But let me tell you, if they're resistant to it, adios, baby. Sorry.
Well, that was easy. Just fire them.
That's exactly right. I got other things to do.
I think you bring up a really good point because there is a requirement. We do need to enforce good behavior.
Yeah.
And if there's bad behavior on our job sites, I agree with you. Get rid of them.
Yep.
They shouldn't be there. And we can identify those people pretty easily that they are not doing the right thing and they're a hazard to themselves, to the people who are working with them, and yes, get rid of them. But I think the other question is, okay, what about those people who are not doing the right thing, but they have a good intention, but they don't know, they're not following the rules, they're not following the training. And one of the people that I used to work with, one of my predecessors, he talked about the two brothers of learning, Pete and Repeat. And sometimes it gets into that mode. It allows people to understand what they're doing and engaging in the good behavior. One of the things that we had also, and this is more of a training issue, and again, I think Mike, you're right on point in terms like if they do something that's egregious, get rid of them. But at the same time, we want to coach people into being involved in those good behaviors. We recently implemented and changed a way that we were reporting incidents, primarily near misses. I think most of us here have near misses, and we found out, and actually I was opposed to it, but found out that with the teams that we were working with, they were saying that the near misses they had a derogatory tone to it. And they simply changed that from near misses to safety lessons. And it may just sound pretty basic there, but as a result of that, we've had more compliance from everybody on the job site. They now don't feel that there's a derogatory tone to when people are reporting in terms of, hey, there was a safety issue up there. And now we've had more compliance and has really improved our safety performance. And it's coming back again to what the culture that we were talking about. I'm sure we're going to say culture over and over again because it is about the culture of the people. But Mike, I agree. If they're misbehaving, fire them.
I like that, safety lessons. I like that. We have the same close calls, near misses, incident, that type of deal. But I like the safety lessons. I like that. I think that'll go a long way. I'm going to change my poop.
Ironically, he's sitting right over here. The director of safety and myself,
Yeah.
we were opposed to that. We're saying, hey, if it's a near miss, hold them accountable.
Call it what it is.
And the rest of our team came through. They're like, well, you got to be more supportive and encouraging for everybody who's out in the field. And I was wrong. And now we're having some really good compliance and really good conversations across the board.
And that communication, exactly, Ed. I know what he's talking about over there. So what's the difference between a near miss and a near hit?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
A near hit is a near miss, right? Except it's a near miss. A near miss means you got hit or something. What's the difference between a near miss and think about it? So, I mean, that really got confusing. So I like the close call, but I really like the lessons learned. Lessons learned are good. I like that one.
Outstanding. We're going to stick with Travis on this one.
Uh-oh.
Keeping Hinson on his toes.
You're
here.
learning.
You got it. So, we all agree companies with a great safety culture, make safety and risk part of everyone's job, right? I mean, no one can say that's not my job, whether you're the CEO, the receptionist of the company, or anyone in between. But how does your organization make safety and risk a part of, say, project managers, estimators, superintendents, part of their job descriptions, but also, how are they held accountable for it? Others within your organization may be, I say, easier to hold accountable because it's more obvious. But for those project managers, estimators, superintendents, how do you make sure it's a core part of their job description and hold them accountable for it? Travis?
Well, this really touches on a couple different philosophies out there because we're talking about safety and risk management. And I like to look at it that those are really two different philosophies that are they're related, but they're different ways to behave. So in safety, that's a philosophy, that's a culture. Once again, I'm saying culture. How are we having people behave and having them get in the mindset that they need to act in a certain particular way? Risk management, on the other hand, is what we do day in and day out. All the project superintendents, the foremen, everybody who the tradespeople out there. Okay, yeah, that's risk management. And so going through, you have to really make sure that everybody understands both of those distinctions out there going forward, and having everybody in alignment with that.
Outstanding. Shawn, same question for you at PCI.
The interesting thing, and I liked Travis's answer there, it is, as we alluded to earlier, it is everybody's job, right? To be a part of the team is to look out for each other, to do things safe. There's personal responsibility, and there's a responsibility to your workmate to watch out for them. And we do some matrices where we watch and see. We start every meeting, and I'm sure most of us do, talking about safety. What is our safety plan? What's our safety on a kickoff meeting or a job start? Hey, what's our plan for safety? That's how you start all of those. But as it relates to the folks on the project management side and all that, we use iAudit, we use different technologies where we can track how many times you've gone out and done an actual audit and what you found on that job and what corrective measures. And we do all the things that technology allows us to track. And from my perspective, I work with my regional manager in safety and say, okay, who's doing them and how often? And not because I want to check that everybody is doing it exactly the same way and all that, but it gives me a sense of who takes time out of their busy day, and we're all busy, to make safety a priority and lead out on a job site. That's an indicator, right, of making it a value to your folks. And so somebody that gets really busy and doesn't do one for a few weeks, you can see that because of the technology, and you can be hey, I'm going to encourage you to do that. The other thing that's fun is we kind of have horse races. So we say, hey, well, this group did this many audits, this group did this many, and kind of, let's have some challenges. And not that I want people to pencil whip audits, and I think that's the answer. I don't, but I think having conversations and having people watch and look out for risk raises the bar for everybody.
Excellent. Question for you, Shawn, following up on that. So when we talk about accountability, if somebody created a hazard, was involved in an incident, a safety incident, okay, you evaluate that, you were involved on some level, what level of accountability are you related to that? But if there's others kind of in the area, on the periphery, or they saw a hazard, didn't say anything, didn't try to remedy it, didn't go to their supervisor and say, are we holding those folks accountable too, where you didn't create it, you weren't injured by it, but you saw it and did nothing? You hold those folks accountable, or how do you go about that
yes,
when there is an incident?
We have more work to do there. We have stop work authorities for all of our tradespeople, and if someone is identified a hazard and didn't stop the work and those types of things. We have those questions. It's a case by case of what you do next, right? And what their authority level was, but it's just and I don't mean if they're a foreman or not foreman, but the authority of, hey, was I in the area? Could I have responded? But part of it's just an education with those folks to say, hey, you don't have to be a foreman, a supervisor, or whatever to stop what you're doing, look around, and make sure your environment's safe, right? And I think that the construction environment and in the field, things evolve and change all the time. And you could be working and turn around and all of a sudden somebody's driving a snorkel lift 5 feet from your back and you didn't even know it was coming, right? So it's just being aware of your surroundings and those types of things. And to that end, you know, we try to teach people, take every 20 minutes, take 20 seconds to look 20 yards away, the 20-20-20 rule. Okay. And just look at your surroundings and just make sure that nothing has changed. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does, and I would have...
Time out.
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Go ahead.
What you're asking for us contractors to do is one of the hardest things there is as an individual to be a witness to an exposure and then, Cheryl, not doing something about it. That's speak up and to getting, that's the culture we're talking about changing, the behavior we're talking about encouraging. That's exactly what we want that individual to do, Jeff. We want him or her to go in and say, excuse me, I'm kind of uncomfortable whether you're leaning on that ladder or, did you realize that there's somebody above you that you need to, get away from here? I mean, there's things that we want you to do, and then you've got to practice it, repeat it, communicate it over and over again to say, this is what we want you to do. And by the way, if you don't, I'm going to get a little upset at you. And I'm going to call you out and make you do push-ups, okay? So just to let you know, Travis, if I see you witness something that's unsafe, I'm going to take everybody in that room. I'm going to say, everybody's doing push-ups. By the way, I know all your boss, everybody's boss. Whether it's an electrician or the plumbers, I know most of the contractor owners in our markets, and I simply say, hey, you work for the electrician, guess what? You're doing push-ups, so I ain't going to answer to you. Yeah, okay, I'll call Barry. We got to help. I mean, that's the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah. Mike, you bring up a great great question here, talking about accountability.
Yeah.
Because I think I agree with you. That's one of the most difficult things to do in our industry right now. Accountability, it's easy when you see that they do something wrong there, but how do you hold people accountable, not only in our job sites out there, and kind of it gets back to the culture and how do you coach them into what they're doing the right thing. But I think there's a bigger question out there from an accountability standpoint is how do you handle other trades?
Right.
Other people that you may not have control over that may be creating a risk out there, and then addressing that. And sometimes we don't have control of that, and that comes back to communication as well too. Sometimes you have to deal with the other trade partners. Sometimes you have to get to a general contractor, but you have to have the desire to address that problem out there. And that communication and the accountability for people who are outside of our sphere of influence. That is a bit, and I don't have the answer to that, but that is one of the big issues that we have right now.
Respectfully, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I say some
You're
of
off
the
script now.
I know we're off script. Some of the smaller contractors, and you're blessed because you have that group right there that you can really kind of focus on and let them know that you really care about them. If they got something in their teeth, you can say, hey, you got something in your teeth. You might want to get something, whatever it is, out of your tooth, right? Because I care enough about you. But when you have 3,500 craft workers out there and they all answer to different animals or pets, and you've got to really influence the way those pets and animals are teaching and coaching everyone that's got a tool in their hand, that's extremely difficult. Again, it starts at the top, and it's got to filter down to that next level of leaders and the following level, because they got to understand, I am passionate about it. And if those people down there are doing what they need to be doing, I'm going to look at you, Mike. You're the one responsible. Fix it, or I'm going to come fix it for you. So that's how you hold people accountable, in my opinion. But I'm a little old school, too, so.
You fire a lot of people, don't you?
I love, what I like? Hey, just to be clear, I like firing people. I love it. I really do. I don't like laying people off, but I love to fire people, and that's because I've already given them several chances. I've given them the training, I've given them the education, I've given them the tools over and over again. I'm done, brother. You're out of here, or sister. I got to say, you're not good for our company and usually my employees. So that's why I like firing people.
There's vacancies on John's team if anyone's interested. He was fully staffed last week, but now there's a couple vacancies. So.
Don't charge me for recruiting from this association. I'll get in trouble, Steve. Yeah.
Just a quick, this conversation got me thinking about, it takes, as we talk about accountability, it takes a certain amount of courage on a job site, particularly if it's one of your colleagues or if it's somebody from another trade. We talk about a stop work order, and that's outstanding as far as empowerment. Anyone on the job at any time can, throw a flag on the play, stop everything, let's look, evaluate, and rectify a potential hazard. But that is very hard for a lot of people to do, to say, yeah, my buddy Phil over there, he's that's a dangerous situation, he's not tied off or whatever. And that's gotta be a very difficult culture thing to get. And, for some people you can push and empower, whether they'll actually do that. And also realize, hey, it's not only for that person's safety who's right near the hazard, but it's for you and all your colleagues and everyone else on the job site to keep them safe too. So it just jumped out at me. It's great we've implemented these empowerment practices, but not easy to implement, but easier to implement, but harder in practice for a lot of folks. Let's move on. With respect to your organizations, your companies, what are the leading indicators that you all track within your companies? And how do you utilize information, whether it's information you gather within your company or elsewhere, to drive safety performance or identify gaps? Because as we talked about, this is an evolution. You just don't roll out a safety program, give everyone the one-pager, the brochure, put something on the website, and you're done, right? So those leading indicators. Shawn, why don't we start with you?
Sure. We track probably what's typical of most of us, a number of incidents, the severity of incidents, your core rate, those types of things. And we report those out on a monthly basis. They're reported out by branch, and we do encourage a little competition among the branches to have the best. So, hey, good competition drives good results. But it's also a measurement of, hey, what type of incidents are we having, and what are we doing about those? How quickly do we get those folks back into either a modified duty and then full release? We're very proactive in all of those things. I had already talked about the audits and at the job site level, what we're doing with some of our technology. But really, all these things are drivers for, and I think Travis said earlier, communication, right? I mean, they're tools, and you can report it out, and if all you're doing is reporting the numbers, who cares? But what they are is they're drivers for conversations about how do we get better, how do we get this person back to work, how do we get the results we want, and that's the way we use the tools.
And that's important. You mentioned, numbers, and hey, we all need metrics and numbers, and that's important. But even if the numbers are positive from year over year, month over month, we probably have to resist the urge to, the numbers are good, great, keep doing what you're doing kind of thing. And just that reinforcement, hey, how can they be even better, the next month or the next year? So that's important.
And particularly safety, you said, hey, the numbers are good, rah, let's.
Yep.
I don't know if everybody's the same, but there's just a paranoia about safety. I don't know that we ever feel good about where we are in safety. If you are, good for you. I never do. I never feel like I could take a breath. This is a journey, it's not a destination. And I wrote an article when I was the president last year. I was on a Southwest flight, and I was really discouraged about our safety. And it had been a rough day, and I was on an airplane, and I was writing my article for AWCI, so I made it about that and just the struggle and how if you care about your people, how emotionally draining it is when somebody gets hurt. And I think that's lost on a lot of people in the field that don't understand how much we care. It's not about the money, and yeah, that's part of it, but that's not it. It's about getting people home, and it does take a toll on you. It really does.
Excellent. Thank you, Shawn. John, Merrick, leading indicators, utilizing information
Well, there was a
to
term,
drive safety?
I learned a new term today. It's called lesson learned. We used to call it close calls, and we're practicing capturing the close calls. New term, lessons learned. We're going to continue improving that method of collecting lessons learned, and when we get those, similarly once a month, we share those throughout. That way that people can actually learn the root cause of what could have caused an incident, and education and communication, it's back to that. But we're beginning to, well, I mean, of course we track, like you said, Shawn, the basics. Everybody else tracks those as well, the leading indicators. But the one that we're really trying to improve on are those lessons learned, close calls. That way that we're educating our people as we go.
We're changing some terms in the industry, it seems like. Here.
Exactly.
It's an evolution.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
100%.
That's right.
Excellent. Travis, at Raymond, what leading indicators are you all looking at and information you're using to drive your safety performance?
I think that we all have similar metrics that we're looking at from leading indicators, and we have a lot of reporting that we take a look at. And just as you were talking about, Shawn, there, that we have a certain compliance requirement in terms of what we track, how we report it. But there's a couple of things that really hit me, and we had one situation a couple years ago. Unfortunately, it ended from a death on one of our projects, and I look back on that project and what happened. And from a leading indicators, we had done everything proper. We had captured all of the metrics. We had all of the protocols in place. And actually, we went through a trial, an OSHA trial because of that death. And Raymond was vindicated, and there was no citations against them. And if you take a look at it simply from a leading indicator or metrics and things like that, we did everything possible. But at the end of the day, someone died. Someone went home. They did not go home that day, and their family is not there anymore. So the leading indicators, I think they're important, but then you have to go back to that culture and that philosophy of having people doing the right thing and being aware of what's around them, because I live with that, and I know our team lives with that. The people who are depending upon us are not coming home. And how do we change that? And I think it's very important, John, as you're talking about, that we track these things, and hopefully we'll learn from that. But I look at those people who have control of our projects out there, and we have a number of different contractors that we work with, and some are they're in lockstep with us in terms of what our philosophy is for safety. Then we have some other contractors out there who, yes, they have a nice protocol, they have a safety, we have a kickoff meeting, but they're just pencil whipping that. And the general contractors or our customers, they have not bought into the philosophy. We have another job that we're just starting up in the San Diego market, and big contractor that I think we all know here. And I thought that they were going to have a great safety protocol going forward, and we had a principals meeting, and I was energized. We all sat there, and we were there almost the whole day talking about safety and how are we going to behave out there. And I thought this is going to be a great job from a safety standpoint. And they had all the metrics and all these things that we had to comply with. Well, now I find out that was just they did not embrace the philosophy. They're not following through with any of their representations. And even though they had a great program out there that we as a subcontractor had to comply with, they did not have the culture. They were just pencil whipping it. And that is one of the biggest threats that I think we have from an industry standpoint, is how do we get those people who don't buy in, that they understand that really bad things happen regardless of how many things that you have a metrics and that you track on that. And I go back to the death on our job out there. We did everything right, but that individual did not come home. And that's one of the biggest fears that I have.
Thank you for sharing that, Travis. Really appreciate that. We have time for probably 2 more questions. So let's tackle the next one as far as specific to our industry. So not construction overall, but the wall and ceiling industry. what do you all see as the biggest safety issue that companies in the wall and ceiling industry are faced with today? John?
I'm first.
You are first, and there's no punting this time at all.
There's a couple. The task-wise, it's fall from elevation. That's going to be your biggest. That's a task. But I will say this: a lot of our industry is, unfortunately, I'll say unfortunately, migrating to use labor suppliers within our own industry, and in some cases, some people that are not members of this association take advantage of that, and I think that's going to be a serious influence on what happens to our industry if those type of companies that are allowed to continue using those type of performers and not oversee their safety is going to have an impact on us.
Thank you. Shawn, what are you seeing in the industry or at PCI as far as the kind of the biggest safety issue right now?
You know, it's interesting for me. I say anytime somebody's feet leave the ground, the risk goes up, right? So whether they're working from a Perry or a lift or a scaffold or whatever, it's just inherently less safe. So that's continues to be a big risk. I think another one that we have to kind of watch out for is as we get new technologies that we don't become complacent as we onboard some new things. And I'm excited about some of the new technologies that make our crews safer, but let's stay disciplined in some of our good habits that have been developed over the years. And amazingly enough, in my experience over the last number of years, we get people hurt more from walking from point A to point B. It's shocking. People don't know how to walk. It's amazing. They trip, they fall, they slide, they slip, they whatever. And you know, we can laugh and joke, but you go out here when we're done and see how many people are walking while watching their phones or looking at their phones and all that. And there's just a lot of things that are happening on a job site, and people are looking around and tripping and all that. It drives me crazy, absolutely crazy, how many people would get hurt walking from point A to point B. So maybe we do a good job of doing a risk assessment of your workspace. So we're going to pencil that, and we're going to have all this PTP, and we're going to have all this stuff for the task at hand. But then I got to go over there and get some materials and bring them to my workstation, and that's when I'm going to get hurt.
100%. Learn how to walk. All right. Travis, biggest issue you all face in the wall and ceiling industry?
We can get into some tactical issues as well as some philosophical issues. From a tactical standpoint, I think statistically you take a look at where the greatest risks may be and the injuries, issues that we have related to falls from height. And height is not necessarily, you know, being a couple stories up there. It could be, 6 feet at depth there. That's one of the biggest issues. Scaffolding, and then also one of the issues that we're taking a look at is the high pressure machinery out there, primarily the plaster pumps out there. So that's a big issue to take a look at. But then, I can come back to the cultural issue in terms of getting people to what's going on around them. And Shawn, I think you brought up a great issue there in terms that you had more people that were getting hurt, maybe walking in and out of the job site. Or a lot of the issues, the injuries or incidents that we have are caused by other trades out there. And then how do we correct that behavior, and do we support them in not only the other trades or maybe the general contractors, but our people, so they can identify what those hazards are and then communicate and correct those issues.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to call an audible a little bit, so hang with me because I think it's critical, and I wish we had more time than 5 minutes to tackle it. But we've talked a lot about health, physical hazards on the job site, culture. One thing we haven't discussed yet is mental health and wellness within the construction industry, within the wall and ceiling industry. It's often the hardest issue to talk about for any individual, any company, but it's so critically important, and it's such a concern, such an issue within our industry that we frankly can't talk more about. If you've ever seen the statistics for suicides in the construction industry, they will knock you out of your chair. I was stunned. I had to read it 5 times to see how the incidence of suicide in the construction industry are so high. And those are those incidents, never mind other folks dealing with substance abuse, other mental, psychological issues that may be apparent, may be hidden. So maybe we can just, go down the line here and, how have your all companies tried to incorporate this into your overall health, safety, wellness program within your companies, resources you provide, just how to address this to provide the support to your employees on their mental and emotional health as much as we do their physical health. John?
Okay, so big companies are going to have an EAP program. Smaller companies, it comes down to, when I say big and small companies, it comes down to getting the word to that individual that we care. Again, I'm back to that little, I call it a booger in your nose, that's what I call it. But what it is you got something in your teeth. I care enough about you to tell you, come talk to me if you need help. Okay, you got a booger in your nose. If I didn't care about you, I'd let you walk around with a booger in your nose. But if I see something, feel free to come up to me. I want you to come up to me, and I want you to say, I got a problem. Is there any way that I could, get some help? So we do have an EAP program as a big company, but it's a matter of getting them an awareness that they have people that they can talk to. And we'll help you. We will definitely help you because we want you to be safe, because you never know what that young man or woman's thinking the next morning when they come to work. You don't know what happened last night with them, and that's unfortunate. But we gotta make sure that we change their behavior so that they know that they have assistance.
Thank you, John. Shawn?
First of all, you've got to do the training. You've got to have a nice EAP program and some support staff that are professionals, as John said. We've done some awareness training for our folks so that they can identify some behaviors from our people that they're working around that might be a signal to ask some more questions. We had a suicide on a job site, a PCI job site that I oversaw. It is something that's still very it's very real, and I can get emotional even talking about it. It's a gentleman that worked for us, took a morning break, walked to the 21st floor and jumped. It devastated our people. It devastated his coworkers, obviously devastated his family. And to navigate that from a leadership standpoint, for him and for his family, was very difficult. It was tough for our people. This is a real situation. I appreciate you, Mike, bringing it up. There's a lot of hurting people. There's a lot of people that came out of COVID that frankly aren't in a great spot, and we just need to care enough about each other, which is what this whole discussion's about, that we understand that you might need to help somebody. Come alongside them, ask a few questions, be vulnerable yourself, tell them how you feel, and really try to connect with them, and they'll talk to you, hopefully, and you can get them some help.
Thank you for sharing that, Shawn. Really appreciate it. Travis?
Well, Shawn, thank you for sharing that. Obviously, that's very emotional. I think it's emotional for everybody who's been affected by suicide or health or mental illness. So the leading cause of death in the United States for working age adults is suicide. And it's 4 times larger in the construction industry. So this is a big problem. I don't have a good answer to that. We need to continue the dialogue on this. Part of what we need to do also is to change the stigma of people, the way that they're handled if they have a mental issue, they have concerns, or they need some help. There's a huge stigma out there for people who have a mental illness or they're mentally challenged. And we need to change that. I don't have an answer to this. I think we have, but I think it's really good that this is a conversation that we're starting here. Frankly, this wasn't on the
I called an audible, but it was an important audible, I thought.
But I'm really thankful that we're identifying that This is a problem in our industry. This is a problem in our nation, and we need to be understanding and supporting of that. We can try to identify that when people are challenging, or you know that they have an issue at home, or that something's on the job site, or they're not responding the way they normally would. Those are good to know, but as a community, we need to be more understanding and more supportive.
Thank you. Well, I'm personally very grateful, and on behalf of AWCI, I'm grateful for all of you for being here. You could be anywhere this morning. You chose to be here for the past hour for this issue, so thank you very much. Very appreciative of our Safety Directors Committee and our Safety Director, Pete Cheney, for their work on this issue, their work putting together this panel. And certainly John Hinson, Shawn Burnum, Travis Winsor, like all of you, leaders in our industry, and really appreciate their insights. Please give them a hand.
You guys.
So we have a 15-minute break. We'll be back in this room. So nice and convenient for everyone. Back in this room, we'll hear from President Travis Vapp, Vice President Travis Winsor. USG will speak as well, and then we'll hear from our keynote speaker, Chad Williams. See you all in 15 minutes. Thank you.